Joe Hart reckons this is what it's like to be Celtic. Celtic, I talk about players. I spoke about in the community tab about a player that has been rumoured to be leaving. But let's talk about players that actually need to leave Celtic this summer. Callum McGregor is on the cusp of being a history maker, being one of the only football players in the world to achieve something. We'll talk about that. Portugal manager Roberto Martinez has been talking about Jota and his assessment, and we'll talk about the money that Celtic... There's been a few guys been jumping on the channel the last couple of days. Some of the virals have done quite well, and there's been a few people from down south talking about, yeah, you would never succeed in England. And but I'm going to tell you exactly why there's every possibility Celtic would thrive if they were to play in England. And the fact that the Glasgow Celtic will get 3.3 million in prize money for winning the SPFL, right? So straight away, you can see where the disparity is. Now, we're talking about a nation that has over 65 million people against a nation that has 5 million. So I hope some of you down south are watching this video. Right? Celtic will go into the Champions League next year, and they'll obviously get around about 21 million for participating in the Champions League. I think you get around about 30 million for finishing last in the English Premiership. So you can see the disparity first. Everyone in Scotland can see it. Everyone around Europe can see it. This is why you've got the likes of Juventus, Real Madrid. And did you watch the Real Madrid-Man City game last night? I've got to say that Real Madrid did the exact same as what they did to Celtic. They soaked up a lot of the thing the first half, and then they just kind of went out, tried to put them to bed. They needed that second goal. Man City did well to come back in at the second half. That's all to play for. And then you've got the two Milan teams playing for the other game that go through the final. Anyway, back to Celtic. When you look at the money involved, you know, it's just unbelievable. And people saying that Celtic couldn't hack it down south, they'd get demoted. They're taking that on the equation that the players would be of the same value, would attract the same players. They'd have more money straight from the off. They would have way more money to spend due to the money that you get in the English Premiership. So, and the fact that the stadium that we've got holds 60,000 people would attract the better players. Also, players would come to Celtic rather than go to like Brighton and stuff down south. Anyway, moving on, we'll go to Portugal and we'll go to Jota land. Everyone that's involved in Celtic knows how special Jota is, and you know how well he's taken to the club. Portuguese manager insists the winger has found his place to flourish and build on the early stages of his career. I think that's one of the most important parts of this comment, the early stages of his career. You've got to remember, he is only still 24-year-old. He will move on to bigger and better things. Of course, he was on loan from Benfica until Celtic forked out $6.5 million for him. So with a huge weight of expectation, Martinez is keen and sees him as one of the hopefuls in the squad. And he says, under Ange Postecoglou's stewardship, he has the perfect environment before he inevitably moves on for a big profit for Celtic. He's going to move for some crazy money. It's about being consistent. He has been consistent. Martinez went on to say the position is in big terms of competition for places, and he has a lot of players that play for Portugal in the same position as him that are way ahead of him just now. But his time will come, says Martinez. Talking about players whose time will come, there's a team in Glasgow who say that they're the most decorative in the world, but there's about to be a player from Celtic who's going to become one of the best players in the world in terms of winning trebles. That's right, our very own Callum McGregor is on the cusp of becoming the first player ever to win 5 domestic trebles. Obviously, we've got to play Caley Thistle in the final on the 3rd of June, but Caley Thistle's actually got a good record against us. You have to remember this. But should Celtic lift the treble, Celtic with 8 are captain with 5. Celtic would hold the world record for 8 trebles. It's just unbelievable still to think of that. And Callum McGregor would hold the world record as 5 domestic trebles won as a club player. Now you'll get people that say, oh, that's a diddy league and all this. You get people down south. But as I've explained, it's a nation of 5 million people. Let's talk about people that need to be leaving Celtic this summer, and some of the names that are still actually on the books are unbelievable. So obviously Barkas he's been at Utrecht, but they can't afford him, so he's actually under a bit of a tug of war. But Celtic are looking to get around about 2 million for him. Other players like James McCarthy, he's still in the books. He is so far out the picture that nobody even knows where he is. Albion Ajeti and Liam Scales is another player that Aberdeen are trying to get tied up. So it looks like they are players that will leave Celtic this summer. There will obviously be, I think there might be one first team player, but the squad will shrink. These players have been out this season anyway. They haven't been involved in the term of first team, so it's imperative that Celtic take a hit. And I think the total combination that we bought these players for was roughly about 11 or 12 million. I'm not sure, I need to add it. Yeah, it's about 12 million. Back to Joe Hart. Joe Hart that we obviously got for nothing. He played for Man City and he obviously won a lot when he was younger. He said he won titles and he won things, and he obviously captained England 75 times, he says. But he says when you win trophies, there's no time for basking in the glory here at Celtic. It's all about the next one, and he loved that. He says, especially as you're an older player, when you're younger and you have success, you feel like the world is yours and it's never going to end. He says, I have been successful and you feel the world is yours, he said. He says, you set new goals and new opportunity, but at some point you know that someone younger is going to come along and take your place. He knows that nothing is promised in football. He says, next year is not promised. The cup final is not promised. We're going to have to work damn hard because, get this one, the next game this weekend is that club's cup final. You gotta love the man, you gotta love him. That's a little dig at the club across the road. He says that it's important because the fans and teams will try to build, and says we have to make as many opportunities as we can. Postecoglou is the man who convinced Hart to make the flight up to Glasgow and join him. Some elite managers asked. The Celtic boss has been hugely impressed. He says he's really top quality. He's very clear on what he wants to achieve in the game, and even being the old dog that he says he is, he says he takes this success and he actually loves it. He says the fact that he's getting results and he's having to push himself at the old age of 36, the fact that he's still got to push himself every day to make sure he gets in this team is something that he thrives on. He says, we live and die by it. I love the opportunity. There's been many managers, many coaches out there who have basically said that he was done, but as far as he's concerned, he's not done. He generally feels comfortable at making risky passes, short passes, and some of the misses or tackles as the ball goes in. I don't think any of us would flinch because it's what we're asked to do. I think Joe Hart has a lot of us actually in panic mode when he makes some of these passes, and you can see it on the faces of fans in the stadium. You can see it, you can hear it, and fans in the pub are shouting, Jesus, why is he doing that? But you've got to admit, he's now played 100 games for Celtic. He is a good keeper. Is he better than the one that we had before that went down to Southampton? He's obviously achieved a lot more in the game. He's won 75 caps for England. That's something that you never thought you'd hear anybody at Celtic say. But a lot of people down south are saying that Celtic would never ever do anything if they got down into the English Premiership, and we all know for a fact that if Celtic got the same money, then people down south and people that have commented on the channel don't realise that if Celtic were to get into the same league and be on a compatible level, they would have way more money. And they wouldn't go down the leagues like you think. They wouldn't be playing with the same standard of player. We'd be going out there and we'd be spending 25, 30, 40, 50 million pounds on players. So on that note, what day is it? It's Wednesday, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, it's Wednesday. Have a great day, Celtic fans all around the world.
Lit. Roll up to the party.